The boy was born with a timer on his head. Every time he took a step, the energy disc on his head would decrease by 1 level. At first he didn't understand what it meant until he saw another person walking past him and the energy on his head was also gradually consumed. Then he walked to the side of the butterfly and suddenly turned into a small flower and stayed there forever. Only then did he realize that he had only 10 steps in his life. He looked back at the small flowers around him and began to feel afraid and hesitant. At this moment, he had the last 8 steps in his life. He took as many big steps forward as possible, but no matter how carefully he stepped, the energy in his head was still extinguished. He was completely panicked and immediately collapsed to the ground, not daring to move another step. The sunlight he longed for was nearby, yet it seemed so far away. Then he carefully stretched his legs towards the light and lay down completely. He thought that this way he could bask in the warm sunshine forever. But when he woke up, he found that the surroundings were already full of flowers, and even the last ray of sunlight was blocked by the later flowers. The boy plucked up the courage to stand up. Then he tried to move the flowers away to embrace the sunlight but failed. Then he looked forward with a firm gaze, determined to walk out of the darkness and chase the direction of the light. In this way, he moved towards the sun. Just when he had only 3 steps left in his life, he finally passed through the flowers and saw the sunlight he longed for. Unfortunately, he stayed there for too long and the sun was about to set. He then raised his foot and prepared to move forward. But seeing that he had only 3 steps left to live, he decided to catch up. He didn't want to miss the last bit of sunlight again because of hesitation, so he took a step forward and ran forward as hard as he could, but the sun he was chasing still disappeared, and there was only 1 step left in his life. At this moment, he was panting, and his body suddenly squatted down, and then he jumped with all his strength. At this moment, he just wanted to use his last bit of strength to run as far as possible to the place closest to the light. His life came to an end the moment he landed on the ground. The energy disc above his head eventually turned into raindrops that fell on his body and turned into a flower as its roots continued to extend. At this moment, it miraculously fell from the cliff and finally fell into the water. It floated towards the light with the water flow and embraced the sunlight again in its own way. It had no idea that the abyss ahead would ultimately become its final destination. It headed toward the light, beginning a new chapter in its life.